Hey guys, my name's Chris Jones at Chris Jones Hair on Instagram. This is my beautiful model, Kinsey. And today we're gonna be taking her up to about a mid-length layered / texturized lob. Something a little longer than what you're used to seeing from me, but I wanna really keep some of this beautiful hair and length. So the one thing that I'm seeing a lot of today is people posting about their consultations on Instagram. And as we all know, good hair starts with a great consultation. So the one thing I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about what we're gonna do with her hair, but I wanna kind of give you an insight of how, what my consultations look like in the salon. And the one thing that I always start by asking is not only do we talk about the length that we're gonna go with, but it's like, what is their ability, their styling ability at home? If she's gonna go home and wash and go, well, I'm probably gonna base my haircut as far as the maintenance to accommodate her, her ability at home. Another thing that I want to kind of get into is talking about her texture. She has a ton of hair, but each individual hair is pretty fine. So we're going to be talking a lot about that during the actual haircut, because that's going to affect the texturizing techniques that we use. So, Kinsey, you are willing to take off some length, right?
Yes.
And are you going to be able to? Are you going to curl it? Are you going to wear it straight? Or you want to do both, right?
Both, yeah. Both.
Okay.
I have one of those blow dry round brushes that I use often. And then I also have just a classic wand, and I'm comfortable using both. So I'm excited about all the bendy layers and stuff.
Perfect. I think probably the best part of this haircut also is because we're leaving it a little bit longer, she's obviously going to be able to pull it back. And I've always felt like the perfect haircut is when hairstyle meets lifestyle. And giving her the ability to pull it back, even wear it in like a bun.
Yeah, and do a claw clip a lot.
Yeah, you're going to be able to do all that. So you're going to be losing a fair amount of length, but you're not going to be losing the lifestyle part of your hair. So also, this is something I'm really excited about because we ahead of time discussed our inspo pick. And this is spot on with her. So we originally talked about bringing it up to the collarbone, and you can tell in this picture, it's actually a little bit below collarbone, which I think for her is ideal. There's also a fair amount of face framing, which we're gonna go through today, but if you look closely at the right and the left side of this picture, her haircut is not a heavy triangle. It actually has shape and movement, but what we don't wanna do is give her the maintenance of a bunch of layers, but we want the shape that comes with layering. So the texturizing, basically from the ears to the back, is going to give her a shape like this, and then the face frame is going to be a little on the heavier side to kind of complement that 90s kind of heavier layer that's on trend. Okay, so before we get started, identifying your starting point and creating your guide is really important because we're starting in the back in hopes that we end up at the correct length in the front. I've kind of gotten through experience over the years, knowing where the collarbone sits in the front, and you sort of mimic that same position in the back. So if the collarbone is here, then this is gonna be my length, my starting point for the perimeter, the outline of the haircut. I think because of her hair texture, and I really want her to get that volume, I'm gonna leave it a little bit longer. So if this is roughly collarbone, I'm gonna be starting a little bit lower than that, probably maybe ½ an inch or an inch below collarbone. Probably the most important thing whenever I'm cutting a perimeter is that I'm not manipulating where the hair lives naturally. We're gonna call that natural fall. So if this is where Mackenzie's hair lays naturally, then that's exactly where I wanna cut it. If I use elevation, if I'm holding it out here in my fingers, whenever I go to cut my line, as soon as I release it, it's instantly gonna build in unwanted graduation, almost like there's a slight bevel to the line. So definitely don't want to use elevation in this particular haircut. I also don't want to use any kind of over direction. So once we start getting a little bit higher into the haircut, everything is still going to be combed into its natural fall so that whenever I cut it, it lives where it gets cut. Another thing that's really important that you want to avoid is too much tension. So I'm not going to be pulling down on this hair. Hair stretches, right? Especially wet hair. So if I can use the wide side of my comb just for control, it's almost like getting that hair combed into place and then doing nothing more than placing the comb into position just to control the hair from moving around. So no elevation, no over direction, and we're gonna use as little tension as possible for this perimeter. So once we've identified our length, which is gonna be somewhere in this neighborhood here, I'm gonna be holding that hair completely still with the spine and the teeth of the comb. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna be chipping away at this. Now the first pass I make through this is purely a rough draft. So I'm not gonna be, overly concerned with how detailed my perimeter is here. I'm just coming in with a rough draft and seeing if I'm happy with this length before I spend all that time, really getting in and detailing this perimeter. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue that length because I think I'm gonna like it. But you can see how quick this is. And there, if I decide to go shorter, I haven't spent all that time to then have to go in and redo it. So let's go ahead and come up about another inch. We're gonna take that off, hold it in place just for control. I'm not lifting it or manipulating where that hair lives naturally. So I think I'm pretty happy with that length. It's a little bit longer on this side, so I'm gonna go ahead and detail this before I drop down my next section. Because I'm sitting on my knees to cut this, I really want to be eye level with what I'm doing. And sitting in a chair that's too high or standing above her makes it really difficult to see this line. So I always like to be eye level. Usually in the salon, I'll be sitting in a stool, just to where I'm in front of my work, eye level with my work. Just kind of chipping away at this detailing. You can see I'm not holding the hair at all now. Just kind of letting it sit where it lives. And the reason why I spend so much time on this first section is because this is the section that sets up my entire haircut. So I've just dropped down section 2, and the one thing that we as hairstylists use for conversations is the mirror. But I'm constantly, in the salon, I'm constantly checking for a client's head position. Because if her head is a little bit crooked, then her haircut's gonna be a little bit crooked. So head position is very important. So in the salon, I would be constantly checking her head position in the mirror just to make sure that she hasn't tilted one way or the other, because as soon as she picks her head up straight, then now her haircut is gonna run uphill or downhill. So checking head position between each cut is super important. And now we're gonna drop down section 2. You can see my guide under here. And I'm just gonna repeat that same thing. I'm combing the hair into its natural fall, not manipulating it. I'm gonna split this in the middle just so I can see my guide underneath. Here's my guide. And I'm gonna place my comb right there. And then I'm gonna cut right to my guide. Now with this one, because I've got my guide already in place, I'm gonna take smaller, a little more intentional cuts here. Because I'm already honing in on the length. So once I get the left side put in, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the right side, and then I'm gonna get right behind her and check and make sure my haircut is balanced before I drop down my next section. So no tension, no elevation, combing the hair into its natural fall. And the thing about this, not only do we want to eliminate that graduation, but the cleaner I can cut this line and the more precise I can get this perimeter, the longer she's gonna be able to go between haircuts. A lot of clients come in the salon and they feel like they have to get their haircut every 4 to 6 weeks, when in reality, they may not have started with a strong haircut to begin with. So the more solid I can create this perimeter, even though it's got a soft touch to it, if I can eliminate all that graduation, then from the back, her girlfriends aren't gonna point out that maybe she didn't get the best haircut. Now, a lot of people ask why I do most of my mid-length haircuts on dry hair. And if the client has any wave at all, I don't want to contend with that. I don't want to worry about what that hair is doing. And if I have to hold that wavy wet hair tight to be able to cut it, as soon as I let go of it, I have no idea where it's going to return. So the majority of the time, I'll blow them out, get them nice and smooth. Try to do my blow dry as clean as possible so I don't have to flat iron that much. If I need to touch up with a flat iron, I will, but the better blow dry I do, the better her haircut's gonna style afterwards. Because if I've gone in here and flat ironed her to death, chances are it's not gonna hold a lot of curl. So I really wanna focus on the blow dry and then just do little touch-ups with the flat iron.